Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down all of the Week 11 SEC football games from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the South Carolina Gamecocks visiting the Missouri Tigers. This game's going to be played on Saturday, November 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 3 p.m. local time in Columbia, Missouri. This game's at Faurot Field. It'll be broadcast on SEC Network. From a betting perspective, this game opened with Mizzou as a 3-point favorite, and it's since moved to a pick'em as of Thursday afternoon as we were recording this video. The over-under opened at 55.5, and it is at 55 right now. Bringing out our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, I know this is the game you've had circled on the calendar for weeks now, right?
Yeah, I had South Carolina 13th in my SEC power rankings all season until about 2 weeks ago, before they played Florida, maybe even a week before they played Florida. And I jumped them over Missouri then, mainly more because of what Missouri did bad rather than what South Carolina was doing well. But basically, if you win this game, you're better than at least two SEC teams, which is something, I guess, for both the fan bases. Plus, if you're South Carolina, you're bowl eligible. So there's something there too. So Nick, why don't you get into the weather, injuries, and news and notes as well?
Sure. So we'll start with the weather. The temperature on Saturday in Columbia, Missouri is going to be in the 40s. It's going to be mostly sunny at kickoff. We do have a little bit of wind to watch for this game. Forecast has it between 10 and 12 miles per hour. Of course, we say anything over 10 miles an hour is something to monitor when it comes to the total on betting a game. So keep your eyes open on that before you place your over-under bets. On the injury side of things, let's start with Missouri. Quarterback Connor Bazelak missed last week's game against Georgia and was not 100% as practice began this week. But there's a long list of Tigers that are dealing with injuries, and it's not apparent which of them may miss this game. They're pretty tight-lipped on their injury situation there. The group includes 3 wide receivers, 3 defensive backs, and 4 defensive linemen, though. So you can tell some areas that have been of concern for the Tigers are that way still because of injuries. On the South Carolina side of things, they also got a bunch of players that are dealing with injuries. I think everybody has that at this point in the season. But this includes 2 of their best linemen that have been out for a long time, as well as quarterback Zeb Nolan and 2 wide receivers and 3 other defensive players. So both teams not at 100%. As we move into the news and notes, though, I just need to know what just happened in South Carolina. The Gamecocks, who Christopher, if you watch our videos all year, notably hates, just went into this game against Florida as a 3-touchdown underdog and won it 40-17. They rushed for 284 yards against the Gators defense, and they were playing their preseason 3rd-string quarterback in Jason Brown. This is a guy who's an FCS level transfer, making his first FBS start against the Gators. Gamecocks, like you mentioned, 5-4 with Auburn and Clemson remaining on the schedule. So don't underestimate the value of those extra practices that are associated with a bowl appearance for Shane Beamer in his first season as coach, plus just the morale moving forward. He's a rah-rah guy who's been rah-rah after a lot of these wins. You can imagine what he's going to be like if he can get this 6th win against Mizzou to get the Gamecocks bowl eligible in his first season in Columbia. Now on the other sideline, as we look at Eli Drinkwitz's team and where they're at, and man, we've talked about how bad that defense has been this season, particularly against the run, but now they're dealing with injuries on the offensive side of the ball. The one thing that we knew about them early in the season was, yeah, the defense is bad, but the offense can score. And Tyler Beatty's obviously a good running back, and Connor Bazelak could do enough throwing the ball to put them into a shootout where we maybe like overs on Mizzou games. But now with Bazelak dealing with an injury, didn't play last week, may not play this week, you got a couple of inexperienced freshman quarterbacks that played in Athens against Georgia last week, and it was no surprise that they didn't score a touchdown, right? They lost that game 43-6, which was about what we expected, and it actually was enough for Mizzou to cover a 39.5-point spread when that game kicked off. But as you try to forecast that forward, being uncertain about Bazelak, what did you learn from Tyler Macon, from Brady Cook? Are they going to mix both of those players in like they did last week? Are they going to stick with one of them and hope for the best? Or does Bazelak play? These are all things to watch going into kickoff on this game as you try to pick a side to bet in this pick'em game. And then the last thing I'll bring up before I hand it over to you, Christopher, for the analysis. This is the battle for the Mayor's Cup trophy, which I bet a lot of SEC fans don't even know is a thing, but it's the Battle of Columbias. You've got Columbia, Missouri, Columbia, South Carolina. Missouri leads the series 6-5, which obviously picked up when Mizzou joined the conference in 2012. The Gamecocks hold a 5-4 edge since the Tigers joined the league, though. So it'll be interesting to see. Last time out, Mizzou won 49-14. Obviously, different circumstances there, different head coach at South Carolina, different defense at Mizzou. Christopher, what are you thinking about this when you try to pick the side of what looks like a coin flip game between a couple of fringe-ish, bullish teams?
Most people, if you're not a fan of either of these teams, the thing that's the most interesting to you this week is, of course, South Carolina's win over Florida, which you mentioned. But I actually think there's more takeaways and more things that are interesting to me from Missouri based on the last week. First, you look at their offense, right? And also you just look at Drinkwitz as a whole. And I think he knows that this game against South Carolina is very important to his early tenure at Missouri. And one of the reasons why I think that is look at the box score against Georgia. And first of all, we've talked about Tyler Beatty, right? A lot. He had 68 touches the last 2 weeks, the last two games before Georgia. That's a lot of touches for a college athlete in playing SEC opponents. He had 9 carries against Georgia on Saturday, just 9. And I mean, 4.6 yards per carry against Georgia. I mean, Missouri managed 4.8 yards a passing attempt against Georgia. So clearly, Tyler Beatty was the best thing that Missouri had. And yet they only handed the ball off to him 9 times against Georgia. And on top of that, they basically had Brady Cook and Tyler Macon, the backup quarterbacks, and said, you guys carry the ball. Good luck against Georgia. And they handed the ball off to those two. They had them run it 21 times. So what does that tell me? That tells me that after Tyler Beatty had so many touches the last 2 weeks, that Drinkwitz knew, let's not waste him on Georgia. Let's not make him have any more hits against Georgia. Let's rest him a little bit. Let's get him healthy because we need him against South Carolina. Maybe at quarterback as well, kind of giving the ball to Sheeps and leading them to slaughter against Georgia and saying, like, we're going to protect the guys that really matter on offense and let them not take some big licks against Georgia. The other thing, though, is what we talked about in another video. Missouri gave a shockingly good performance in their rush defense against Georgia. I mean, if not for 2 carries by receivers that totaled more than 50 yards by Georgia in the game, we're talking, very pedestrian average. I think close to around 4 yards a carry for Georgia against Missouri outside of those 2 receiver runs. We're talking about running back one, Zamir White, 9 carries for 14 yards. I know James Cook had a decent day, but, I am probably as shocked that Georgia did not run the ball more effectively against Missouri that I am that South Carolina beat a Florida team allegedly that had 20-plus players with the flu. So how does that carry over to this game? I definitely think South Carolina I don't think South Carolina by far has a much better defense than Missouri, especially up front. So, if all Missouri has is hand the ball off to Tyler Beatty, that doesn't seem so bad for South Carolina. And the market is obviously screaming South Carolina here. Basically, it opened Missouri at home as a 3-point favorite. That's kind of saying, like, this is a toss-up on a neutral field. We'll let them sort it out on the field. It's a coin flip. But the market has gone 3 points, and in some sports books, 4 points the other direction, making South Carolina a 1-point favorite in spots. So to me, the market is screaming to bet on South Carolina in this game. But Nick, what are you doing?
Well, Christopher, first, if you've got a strong lean on this game, I got a way for you to get an extra $800 to get your bet rolling on it. And that's with our new partnership with Action 24/7 Sportsbook. Football season obviously in full swing with these guys, and they're celebrating with special deals for new customers. For a limited time only, you get your deposit match 100% up to $800. So if you sign up today and make your first deposit using code SOUTH14, that's SOUTH14, and Action will double your money up to $800. So you put on $800, they'll match it and put an extra $800 in your account. So download the app, or visit action247sports. Action247.com to get things started there. Action 24/7 is by Tennesseans for Tennesseans. So you've got action. And my action on this game for the purposes of our picks, because I say that because I'm not sure that I want to put my hard-earned money on either of these teams, but I believe in the momentum for a team with an early tenured coach like Shane Beamer. And that win, yeah, maybe it is against a depleted, demoralized Florida team, but it meant something to them, and you could just see it in the body language of those players late in that game. So I think that carries over. I'll take South Carolina in the pick'em here. And then on picking the total, I would say I don't trust the Missouri defense at all. And I do trust that offense enough if Bazelak plays, or at least they consider throwing the ball a little bit to get us over 55. So I'll do over, I'll do South Carolina, but again, not putting money on either of those. Christopher, what are you thinking?
I'm with you on South Carolina. I'm not going to go against the market here, not going against the trends and my own power rankings. If you can get them at pick'em, I probably would have preferred it early when I could get South Carolina +3, but I'll go under 55 as well. The thing that you're scared about, I think you mentioned South Carolina's rushing total against Florida. And we know the transitive property doesn't work in college football, right? But if it did, that would be, you would expect an even better performance against Missouri's rush defense here. The thing that I'm most curious about with the total is, can Missouri carry over any of its rush defense improvement that it showed against Georgia to this game? Knowing that South Carolina doesn't scare you at all throwing the ball, can you just sell out to stop the run if you're Missouri? And can you have maybe a little bit more success like you did in the Georgia game? Because if you can do that, I think I don't trust, Missouri to throw the ball. I don't trust South Carolina to throw the ball. And I don't even trust Missouri to run the ball right now that effectively when South Carolina's front seven is pretty decent and they know Missouri's not going to throw it. So if Missouri's defense can give us just a little against the run, then I think we're going to cash under 55 here. But for Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you next week.